We are live.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. My sincerest apologies for running behind. Chalk it up to technical difficulties. I'd say it happens to the best of us. It also happens to the most mediocre of us. Thanks for all joining this evening. We're going to get this meeting called to order. We'll start with roll call, and I'm just going to work through a lot of faces here. We'll start with Sarah Hudson.
Here.
Amy Patillo.
Here.
Wendy Hundley.
Here.
Buck Shapiro.
Here.
Gavin Massengill. I don't see a picture for you, but do we have you?
Here.
Right on. There we go. Okay, welcome, council. We are going to go ahead and move on to public comments. This is for anybody wishing to address the city regarding any items that are not on the agenda. And anybody with that, there we go. Thanks, Gavin. Limit comments to 3 minutes. We will note a call on you. If you go down to if you're joining on your PC, your laptop, down at the bottom of your screen, you'll have a raise hand. That'll indicate to Ashley, our city secretary, that you wish to speak, and she'll unmute you from her side. If you're joining from a tablet or cell phone, forgive me, but I'm not entirely sure the function for the same raising of the hand. Ashley, do you have comments there, or can you give some color, please?
Yeah, there should be down at the bottom of your screen either 3 dots for more, and in that menu it will pull up raise your hand. You may also have to go to the participants button, and then from there you're able to raise your hand. And if you are calling in only by phone, I don't see anybody at this time, but *9 will raise your hand and *6 will unmute you and mute you again.
Great. Thank you for that, Ashley. Okay, members of the public, I'm going to wait just a couple more ticks. So if you're here to comment on anything not on the agenda, now is your opportunity. Anything, Ashley?
At this time, we do not have any hands raised.
Okay. Perfect. Well, I'll tell you what, we will move on from public comments then. And with everyone's permission, we have a very special guest joining us this afternoon, or this evening, rather, Bob Moore. And what I'd really like to do, assuming there is no objection, is I'm going to go ahead and call up his agenda item and move it to the front. Forgive me, I'm trying to find that item number now.
Item 11.
Thank you very much. Item 11, presentation of a proclamation honoring Bob Moore's service as the Chief of Staff for Travis County Precinct 3. And boy, is that an understatement. He has done so much more, not just for the precinct, but for our community specifically. And that is why I have the distinct honor and pleasure this evening of welcoming Bob Moore. So if you guys could all join me in waving, saying hi, and thank you for taking even more time out of his schedule to be with us. Bob, I'm gonna see how rosy your cheeks get, because I know you're a very modest guy. It's one of the probably your one of your greatest character traits, but we're going to turn those cheeks rosy nonetheless. I've got a little bit of proclamation that I'm going to read through here, if everyone would bear with me. We are here today to express our appreciation to Bob Moore and to honor him for his distinguished 18-year career with Travis County and contributions and services to the city of Rollingwood. And whereas, having moved here in 1984, Bob and his wife Judy have been loyal citizens of the city of Rollingwood for 37 years. And whereas Bob has served as Chief of Staff to the Travis County Commissioner of the 3rd Precinct for 18 years, And whereas while serving as the chief of staff, Bob fostered a positive relationship by and between Travis County and the city of Rollingwood. And whereas Bob well represented the interests of Rollingwood as an entity in Travis County, and Rollingwood was better for it. And whereas Bob has volunteered his time, talent in Rollingwood over the several years, most notably while serving on the hiring and selection committee for our chief of police, and his contribution to that effort was invaluable. And whereas on behalf of the entire city council, I want to congratulate Bob on an outstanding career with Travis County and express our sincerest appreciation to him for his unwavering dedication and service to the city of Rollingwood, and wish him much happiness as he begins his new chapter in his life. Now, therefore, I, Michael Dyson, Mayor of the City of Rollingwood, do hereby proclaim Wednesday, January 20th, 2021, as Bob Moore Day in the City of Rollingwood, and I urge all citizens and employees to join us in recognition of his exceptional career and service. Proclaim this 20th day of January, 2021. Bob, this is probably the least we could do to thank you for your service. And I'm sure we are on a long list of folks that appreciate all that you've done. As I say, not just for the county, but for our city. And I've got the special privilege of calling you a neighbor. So thanks for everything. And I'll tell you what, floor is yours. If I could impose on you, even just to say hello and to wave to everybody.
Well, yeah, I would like to say thank you. And being in politics as long as I have, I know how appreciative people are of brevity. So I will keep this short. I do want to say thanks to you, Mayor, and to the council for all you do for our fair city. As you advised early in your comments, I've been living here longer than many of y'all have been alive. So I have certainly seen what the benefit of the service you provide to this community has produced. Rollingwood is a great place to live. Many folks in this fair United States think we're in the top 10, if not the best place in the whole United States to live. So we are all very fortunate to live here. I do want to say thanks to my commissioner, who I worked with all those years. Commissioner Doherty allowed me to come to work for him his first day in office, and I served him, and we walked out the door the last day together. So that was a distinct privilege. Precinct 3 is it's a pleasure to serve all the folks in Precinct 3. The only hazard is, like you, Mayor, you have noted that most of the citizens in Rollingwood, like in Precinct 3, are type A personalities. And as a result, people don't only think they're right, they know they're right. And you are fortunate to have many type A personalities serve on your council. So guys, this came as a real surprise when my good wife, Judy, put together the little retirement parade, and several of you came by in that parade to wish me good luck. And to have the police lead that little retirement parade was quite a surprise. So I promised you brevity. I will cut this off now, but I do want to say thanks to all of you. It's a pleasure to live here, and I haven't died, I've just retired. So if things do come up, Mayor, Amber, Ashley, that I can be of service to you, please call on me. It would be a pleasure to get to work with you. Thanks a lot, guys, and good night. And thanks again for all you do.
Please call on him.
Thank you, Bob.
That was Judy saying that, ending it kind of like Gerald ended his commercial, if many of y'all saw that.
Yeah.
Please call on him. So thanks,
Well-
guys.
Well, if you think for a second that we're gonna not call on you, just go ahead and apologize to Judy for us. We'll be recruiting you back into service sooner rather than later.
I will do that. Thank you, guys.
Yes,
Good
sir.
night.
Stay well. Thanks for joining us. Okay, council, I tell you what, we're going to move on to our public hearing, our first of several public hearings, I guess. Item 2, public hearing on a proposed project for the tax note series 2020 preliminary engineering report for drainage improvements at or near Hubbard Circle, which is estimated at $61,622, estimated to take 90 days. And anticipated analyzing public safety issues posed by flooding and identify any potential needs for easements or similar. Gavin Massagill has been diligently working on this, and if he wouldn't mind providing us a little bit of context there, I'd be happy to give him the floor.
Sure, happy to do that, Mayor. Do we know if we have anyone for public comment? I'm happy to do that either way. I was just wondering if we have public comment.
That's excellent point. Probably a better place to start. Thank you. We have, again, this is the hand icon down the lower portion of your screen. It'll be, I'd ask the comments be kept to 2 minutes, 3 minutes. It's probably pretty important stuff, so we could probably give some little bit of leeway there. Do we have any hands raised for public comment? I see some names on here that may have an interest. Give everybody a couple extra seconds here to.
And if folks are questioning whether to have public comment, I will cover all the details here in a minute. So no one needs to feel compelled if they don't want to have public comment, but they're welcome to if they do.
And I'll tell you what, and Gavin, that actually kind of underscored my thinking a little bit, that maybe by providing some level of context there,
Sure.
it might kind of break the ice for anybody that's either new to this process or wondering whether this is an appropriate time to ask their question.
Gotcha. Happy to do that, Mayor. Thank you.
Exactly.
Everyone, I'm very pleased tonight and I apologize. I'm sitting in the Houston Hobby Airport, so bear with me, but I'm pleased to bring this to you this evening. This is the Hubbard Circle project, which council is familiar with, and those around the Hubbard Circle area are well familiar with. It's been before us many times. As we've talked about in previous meetings, we have engaged in this project to undertake a very similar process that we have with the Pleasant Nixon drainage project. We have done outreach to the neighbors and to the affected stakeholders, both upstream and downstream. And if council will bear with me and remember, there was actually a motion that I made, I believe Wendy seconded, and it was passed 5-0 and at our June meeting to actually move forward with this project. So council has already taken action to move forward with this project at a previous meeting. However, after that, council adopted a more formal process to undertake when it comes to the tax notes. So we're in a little bit of an awkward situation here where we have actually already taken action to move forward, but we now have a process that's a little bit more formalized in terms of how we undertake and engage in public comment and public access and transparency for the tax notes. So this is sort of a hybrid approach that we're trying to adhere somewhat to the intent of the new policy that we have. But in fact, we've already taken the action, so it's not particularly necessary, but we wanted to sort of thread the needle of trying to adhere to the intent of our new policy while still moving forward with the previous action that council has already taken. So that's why it's before us tonight. We are considering the preliminary engineering report process that we are familiar with from the Pleasant Nixon process. And so we're basically just rinsing and repeating what we've already done at Nixon Pleasant and applying it to the Hubbard Circle project, which we're all pretty familiar with. And I think we all agree that we need to move forward for a variety of reasons, some of which of them are legal. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Mayor. I hope that was a brief enough and sufficient enough explanation.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, Gavin. And just for a level of clarity, when you say some of it is legal, that was not to suggest that the other portions were not legal, so much as to suggest to avoid running afoul of legalities. Is that
Sure, absolutely.
fair clarity?
That's correct. That's correct.
Good
We've
deal.
worked on
I
this.
I wanted to make sure that nobody got the filled that gap in incorrectly. So
Yes.
with that context, we'll open the public hearing back up 6:52. And if there's anybody that wishes to speak on this item, again, now is the right time. Click the hand icon to raise your hand, and that will signify to our city secretary, Ashley Wayman, to unmute you and give you the floor. So I do see one. We have Colleen Preheim.
Yes, and Colleen, you can unmute yourself on your end.
Okay, great. Hi, everybody. Thank you. I'm just wondering if you, and I don't know if it's the next agenda item or not, is part of this discussion, but I'm wondering if you can give us some idea on timing.
Yeah. Yes, Colleen. Mayor, do you?
Yes, please go for it. You've been.
Yes, Colleen. I think we can, and I will, with this statement, be giving our engineering folks. Actually, I think Amber, probably if you can take this one or pitch it to engineering, either one.
Yeah, we think this piece of the project will take 90 days. And then if council approves it after that point, we think maybe 9 months, 6 to 9 months to get the project done. Lauren, you think that's about right?
I think that's probably about in the ballpark for design and then construction after the PER.
Colleen, is that helpful? So 6 to 9 months, approximately 90 days, and then approximately 6 to 9 months following.
So the 90 days would be the time in between, that would be when you're assessing it, and then after 90 days, council would approve or disapprove to move forward.
That's my understanding. Gavin?
That would be our hope. Yes, and the plan, obviously. And Colleen, I know we've talked some about this, and I know timing is important to your family. I will commit to you to try to do everything that we can to push the project, to move it as judiciously and quickly as possible. Some of that will be out of our control, but to the extent that we can control it, you have my commitment to try to help push it as much as possible.
Thank you, Gavin, and everyone else. We really appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am.
Thanks, Colleen. Okay. And just not to suggest that you are done with comment, Colleen, but if you are, and for anybody else, once you've raised your hand, if you could also click the icon again to bring it down, that'll let us know. If you do decide you have additional comment, we'll know to call on you again. Is there anyone else that wishes to comment on this item?
At this time, we do not have any more hands raised.
Okay, thank you, Ashley. I tell you what, guys, just for anybody else that's listening, obviously we always endeavor actually to move expeditiously towards resolution. But these things unfortunately do take time. So there will be opportunities for always, this isn't the only time to put your 2 cents in, I suppose, just a good time on a public forum.
Yeah, which is a great point, Mayor, and part of the preliminary engineering report process does include not necessarily a public comment, but certainly stakeholder input. And so there are ample opportunities that are not at public meetings to participate in that process. And in fact, it's designed that way to make sure that we hear from neighbors during that upcoming process. So.
All right. Thanks, guys. And that's a little bit of stalling too, just in case anybody else get the courage to raise their hand. Not seeing anybody. We will move on to item 3 then, which is, as Colleen accurately predicted, a discussion and possible action by council on preliminary engineering report for drainage improvements at or near Hubbard Circle. And with that, I will open it up to council. If anybody has action they wish to see that might trigger comments.
And I'm happy to make a motion, but I would appeal to any of my colleagues who are not sitting in the Hobby Airport to feel free to make that motion for me, since I don't have the agenda in front of me, and I will happily second it.
I would move to approve the preliminary engineering report for drainage improvements at or near Hubbard Circle, which is estimated to cost $61,622, estimated to take 90 days, analyze public safety issues posed by flooding, and identify easement need, and to approve a scope of services with K. Freese and Associates to perform the preliminary engineering report.
Thank you.
I think we got a second in there. So a motion from Amy Patel and a second from Gavin.
So yes, I was talking on a mute. So
Yeah, no worries. We'll go ahead and open it up for discussion. Council, Sarah, go ahead.
Yeah, I did not see anywhere on the proposal whether this is supposed to be a not to exceed fixed fee estimate. What the format of the proposal is.
Good catch. And I will defer to Amber.
I believe
Or-
it's
or
fixed
K. Freese.
fee. Lauren, is that your understanding as well?
Correct. And I guess, Amber, were you able to send out that updated cost estimate that came in slightly less than what was originally on the agenda?
Yes, that was sent out today, and that's also included in the packet. So though the agenda language says 61,622, it is slightly lower than that.
So
great. I'm open to. I would second a friendly amendment, Amy.
So I would amend the previous motion for the amount to reflect the current estimate, which is $59,512.13.
Second.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Council, any additional discussion?
So,
Go ahead,
I have
Sarah.
the follow-up to that question. So Charlie, is there any reason why we have to do fixed fee bids?
Charlie, you're on mute.
Is he there?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I thought I could press the space bar, but apparently I cannot press the space bar. I'm not aware of anything that requires you to do fixed fee, but this is more of a bond question than it is anything else. I'm not familiar. I'm not comfortable answering that question without reaching out to somebody else with a different experience or looking into it.
Okay. I asked that question because in my experience, the projects that we do that are fixed fee in my company, those are the ones that we make the most profit on. And so, because when you're bidding a fixed fee project, you include contingencies and you make sure that you're not going to lose money on them. So I would just say that in the future, we might request that bids not be bid as, or not be presented as fixed fee. not to exceed or time and expense or something else, because like I said, in my experience, the fixed fee projects are the ones that result in the highest profit level for the person doing the project.
And if I can, Sarah, just to kind of address your concerns, this budget that we have in there is pretty slim for the work we're doing. And then of course we got an exact estimate from the surveyor for their portion of the work. So we're not intending to cushion this.
And I wasn't trying to imply that you were,
Sure.
trying to,
Sure.
trying to be unethical or, in any way. I think that in practice, if we have a good working relationship, that it is better on both sides to kind of share the risk, if you will. Because if something comes up that goes way crazy and it becomes more expensive for you, then that's not really fair to you all to have to absorb those costs. And on the other hand, if we had voted on this before we got the bid back from the surveyor, then we would have been approving a fixed fee that, was more than what the actual expenses are for you. So I just think that that's a more equitable way to handle it for both parties.
Well noted. Thank you, Sarah. Do we have any other additional thoughts or comments, council? Not hearing any. I'll go ahead and call for the vote. Amy, you're up first on my screen.
Aye.
Aye. Sarah?
Aye.
Gavin?
Aye.
Buck?
Aye.
Wendy?
Aye.
All right. The ayes have it, and we'll move forward with the project that came in under budget. Thank you for getting it under budget, K-Freeze. I tell you what, let's deliver an even higher quality solution at an even lower price.
We'll work on that.
All right. With that, we'll move on to the next agenda item. We'll close out the public hearing at 7:04 for item 2. And we'll open up a public hearing on a variance from the city's Code of Ordinances, section 24-91, building mounted signs as requested by Compass. Council, I guess this is the public hearing portion. I'm going to go ahead the way we're doing. I'm going to also call up item 5, discussion and possible action on a variance from city's Code of Ordinances, section 2491. At the same time, that way, if we have some public comments that would like some clarity from council, we can free that up. Do we have any hands raised? I'd like to comment on this, just to give a little bit of context. There's a question or a request by Compass to put signage up for their new I'm assuming long-term lease setting over the Endeavor Rolling Woods Center. Russell Collins. Hi, Russell.
Hi, good evening, Mayor and Council. Russell Collins with Avison Young, Project Development and Management. I'm representing our client Compass Group Realty for that exact install.
Hi, Russell. Thanks for
Hi.
joining us.
Thanks for having me.
What we're going to do for this portion, unless you wanted to provide some detail, I see you've sent some details over, which have been provided by our head of development services to the in our public packet. If I could keep you kind of in reserve for comments or questions from council. And then I'll ask if there's anybody from the public that has comments. Not seeing any, then I tell you what I'll do is I'll open up the floor to the dais, for council. Sarah, it looked like you had your hand about to, there you go. I'll give you the floor.
So what is Compass's business?
Sure, yes, ma'am, Ms. Sarah. Compass is a realty group that has a long-term lease at 2500 Bee Cave. They specialize in residential and also commercial and some small institutional.
So are they likely to have clients visiting the office building at night?
Very much so. Yes, ma'am.
And is this, it looked like this was building 3, correct?
That is correct.
So this will be directly facing MOPAC where the sign will be? I'm not MOPAC, Bee Caves?
Sure, yes, ma'am. It's in the southeast corner, so it overlooks the frontage road exit off of MOPAC onto Bee Cave, just closest to the park garage that's on the southeast corner.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And there was a reference that another tenant had a illuminated sign. Where is, I have not driven by at night lately to see. Can you tell us where that sign is?
Sure, I believe it's on building number 2, and I believe it's on the westerly facade on the eyebrow side of the southwestern corner of building 2. It's called Well Sky.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. We utilizing that as our precedence as well.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Guys, we also have Carrie with us, just in case there were questions for development services. Not hearing any, not seeing any public comment. Again, council, gonna ask if anybody over there wants to take action on this item, whether to approve, deny, or I guess there's also the option of considering at a later date.
I will move to approve a variance from the city's code of ordinance, section 24-91, building mounted signs as requested by Compass to allow an illuminated sign. And that's what the request is illumination, right? Not just, is it the size as well? I thought it was just illumination.
Correct, ma'am. Just the illumination. Yes, Ms. Wendy. Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion from Wendy and a second from Amy. Do we have additional discussion or comments, council?
I don't recall the discussion when we approved the last one on that building. We just denied an illuminated sign on another office building. Granted, that one was visible, that sign was visible to residents on Timberline, but I'm just thinking that their definition of hardship is going to apply to anybody that wants to put a sign on any of those buildings. And we don't have that many office buildings in Rollingwood. And there's a reason why they were not allowed in our code to have illuminated signs when those ordinances were originally developed. And I don't know that we should give a blanket approval for, which is essentially what this sounds like it's going to end up, because they're already claiming precedent for another one that we had approved. I was concerned with us ignoring the limited ordinances that we have on our building codes.
Sarah, would you propose that we evaluate the ordinance we have on file and see why we're approving ones that aren't facing away that are facing away from the residential. Perhaps that's why we're more willing to grant the variances, because it's not causing our residents to be affected by the light pollution. And maybe that is what the precedence is. So are you suggesting that we should just deny these forevermore, or should we look at the code that we have and see if we want to adjust the code in some way that we could not have to have variances in some situations, but then anything that did affect neighboring properties, we look at it building by building? I'm just kind of wondering what your solution is for what you think we should do in this.
I think we're in the middle of a comprehensive plan evaluation, and the strike force is getting ready to send out a new survey, and this is the kind of thing that I think we should be getting feedback from the community on, instead of making, kind of piecemeal changes to, variances to the code that we have right now.
So your suggestion is that we should add this to the strike force survey that's going out now to poll citizens on whether or not they want to have illuminated signs on buildings in the Bee Cave corridor?
Or the strike force considers this as part of the evaluation of the commercial corridor altogether.
Okay.
Okay, do we have any other comments, council? Not hearing any. We've got a motion on the and a flight about to take off. Gavin, I'll try to give you.
Sorry, I'm trying to go back and forth.
You're okay. I'm going to try to work with you as best I can. If no other comments, we'll go ahead and call a vote on the motion in front of us. Sarah Hudson?
No.
Amy Patillo?
Aye.
Wendy Hundley?
Aye.
Gavin Massengill?
Aye.
Buck Shapiro?
Aye.
Okay, the ayes have it. And there'll be a sign. For what it's worth, I don't know that I would hang precedence on granting variances in certain situations, and I certainly don't necessarily think that the granting of a variance alters our city code in any format. With that, I do think that it would be worth us making sure, and I think, yeah, Tom Farrell's on here, making sure that the strike force does take this under consideration, at least for discussion's sake going forward. We'll close out public hearing on that at 7:15, and we will open up our public hearing on a draft citizen survey from the Comprehensive Plan Strike Force. So this timely segue. I'll also call up item 7, discussion and possible action on a draft citizen survey from the Comprehensive Plan Strike Force. With that, do we have any, public comments are open at 7:15. Do we have anybody wishing to comment on the survey? This is just for clarity's sake, would be the second survey on this topic. We are intending, or council is being charged with consideration by the strike force for submitting for public consideration. Got a hand up from Ryan Clinton. Ryan, you've got the floor.
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to say that I was here in case there was anything you guys wanted to hear from me, since our subgroup had put it together.
Great.
I don't know what Tom was planning to present it, but I'm here if you need me.
Thank you.
I would, Ryan, if this is Tom, I would certainly like for you to present that if you would. I'll answer whatever questions I can, but I think this is, Ryan is head of the subcommittee that is responsible for the survey. And although many of us worked on it, but I would like, Ryan, if you don't mind, if you'll present, and then I'll help where I can, if you don't mind.
Sure, I'll wait for you, Mr. Mayor, whenever you'd like.
It's the floor is yours. I don't see any other hands raised. So go for it, Ryan.
Sure. Well, the impetus behind the idea of putting together a second survey was, I think the council and the strike force had gotten considerable feedback from the community, thinking that they wanted a more robust, kind of a little less leading survey. And I think the strike force also wanted, the consensus of the strike force was that we could use additional information on more subjects. So that was really the impetus of putting together a second survey, that we could get more community feedback on more issues to help inform the strike force's proposed comprehensive plan that the council would consider. The process, I wanted to just make sure that everybody knew that it's been a fairly robust process. The starting point was a survey that several members of the community had put together on their own. So we took that as a starting point. And then the subcommittee, which was of 4 or 5 Rollingwood residents, spent several meetings hashing it out, hacking questions out of it, adding more questions. We also circulated it to council members. We've gotten some feedback, and I wanted to tell you where we are and why, if you have given us feedback and it hasn't been, and you don't see it in this draft, I wanted to explain why. So the draft that you got today is the draft that was posted at the strike force meeting last week. And so we did not make any changes at strike force to take into consideration the comments that we got. For example, we got some really strong comments from Councilmember Patillo, and we also got some strong comments from Councilmember Hudson, both of which made some really good points, and we absolutely do intend to incorporate those. We got a whole bunch of comments also from Councilmember Hunley, but we got them earlier in the process prior to posting for the strike force meeting. So we did incorporate those the best our committee could in the draft that you see, but I wanted to explain why Councilmember Patillo and Councilmember Hudson probably don't see their comments yet reflected in the draft, and that's because we went with the posted version that was posted prior to getting your comments back. And so it's gone to the strike force. It was kind of the view of the strike force that instead of asking you to approve this, to send it out, we wanted to ask you to consider it and to give feedback, send it back to the strike force, have yet another opportunity for citizen input to the extent citizens do want to participate here, and send it back to us with your comments, and we can try to hash it out some more. I don't know that it's obviously completely up to you guys. For us, it doesn't matter if you take an official vote on anything today, but if you want to take, to give us unofficial feedback, whether it be on this call or in writing, as we have with the other council members who have participated, then we're happy to do it either way. Whatever you guys want, it's your call. I should mention also that Councilmember Gavin Massengill had also given feedback, and his was incorporated as well. So whatever you guys want us to do, we're ready to go ahead and move forward. But knowing that we already have some input to incorporate. So we do not expect you to give your seal of approval on this version today. We are looking for feedback.
Thank you, Ryan. Tom, do you have color you'd like to add, or?
The only thing I would add is we are trying to get this out so it's kind of an integral part of the overall plan. So I would like to try to, we have a meeting coming up Monday, and then we have a town hall meeting that has been scheduled, and for the life of me, I can't remember the date, but Ashley is standing by that can tell us the date of that, and I'd like this to be out in circulation before that happens anyway on that. So that's the only time constraint that I have on that. But we want to make sure we get all the comments and make sure we get everybody's feedback before we send it out. So we'll get it done.
Tom, I believe it's scheduled for February 10th.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tom. Council, do you have any discussions or comments? Inclined to take any action?
Are we still in a public hearing? Where
I'm sorry, did I not call up both public hearing and discussion and possible action? I'll tell you what. Do we? How about?
you did. I don't want to comment until I don't want to comment.
Okay.
For
I
members of
tell
the
you what
public.
tell you what I'll do is I will just, for clarity's sake, also call up discussion and possible action on a draft citizen survey for the comprehensive plan of strike force. So now it is definitely called up, maybe twice, maybe not, at least once. So council, I'm also obviously deference to anybody in the public with their hands raised, but I do not see any. So council, are you inclined to take action or give any kind of direction, feedback to the strike force or the survey subcommittee?
I want to thank the subcommittee for working on this. I know that they've been working fast and furiously trying to get something put together. The survey that I commented on was pretty robust. It had a lot of questions on it. Most of my comments were on the topics in the organization and just consolidating it. There were multiple questions on the same comment. So I did try to help with the organization and sectioning of it and some of the wording choices. And I still think that there's some work that could be done with the wording choices. And I'm open to spending the time, if the council wants to, going through the survey to give the strike force just some input on the questions and just some things to think about and maybe some information about the different studies and work that has been done. And if the council wants to do that, I'm happy to do that.
I'm happy to do that as well, Mayor, depending on how you want to manage the time on this. We could
Well, I mean,
go page by page.
my preference is to take a page out of or from our much more experienced learned scholars as was presented earlier this evening. Brevity is appreciated. So I think if there is a need for council to make sure that they do not run afoul of Open Meetings Act and have this discussion now, then we can carve out a little bit of time. Otherwise, I suspect we've probably all read through it a time or two by this point. So I hope that was your politician's answer. If you'd like to discuss it, tell you what, let's keep discussion to 10 minutes. How about that?
We can do that, or I would tell you if there's some major points that you want to include in here, we can discuss those, but otherwise follow up with just some written comments would be appreciated, so that we could, especially if we could get them before Monday, I think that would be useful so we could present them to our whole group on it. Ryan, would that work for you?
Yes, we'll do whatever the council directs us to do. My time is limited. I think I've already told you that, Tom, for the next 2 weeks, but whatever, I'm sure other members of the committee can work on it in the interim as well.
Great. Does that work would that help with your, the timing? I realize that it's kind of tough with this. And so
well, I just try to be respectful of everyone's time, Tom. So yeah, absolutely appreciate it. And unless council is, really wants to make sure they make a couple of points here. Otherwise, I would encourage people to provide written comments. And again, just to make sure that we're not we are erring on the side of transparency, even oversharing. Let's make sure we're running everything through the intermediary, our city secretary, for proper distribution. And that way we can have, again, transparency and accountability, which, as I understand it, is a key part of why we're undertaking these processes to begin with. So.
Absolutely. And I might say Ashley does a wonderful job of doing that. So
no doubt.
And
I did have one thing. It's just a suggestion, and I don't know that anyone has a whole lot of time on their hands, whether it be citizens, volunteers, staff. But I think one thing that may be helpful is getting some one-sheeters out there on the different studies that we have done. I know we've listed off all of our studies. We have our studies available. The survey does link to the studies, but they're very long studies that have happened sometimes over many years. And so I think something that could help educate citizens and help people to be more able to take a survey with so much information and such a learning curve. If there's a way that we could create those one-sheeters, maybe even get our buoy to look at our high points and the reasons we did the study, what we studied, the recommendations that came out of the study, and any action that council took, I think it'd be very helpful to have that as an addendum to the survey rather than expecting people to read the amount of material that we have out there.
That's fair. I always want to be sure to issue a cautionary tale there. We have attempted to summarize reports in the past, and the difficulty with summaries or even executive summaries is that you always end up, or potentially end up, leaving out details that some others feel were critically important or material to the conversation. And in some even just recent experiences, those have been greeted with raised eyebrows and even some greater concern than just that. So I would just, again, cautionary tale. I appreciate that people's times are limited, and certainly executive summaries are effective. One-sheeters, same thing, I suppose, or one-pagers. But that would be my only point, I suppose. Certainly worthwhile.
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, I feel like the executive summary, one-sheeter, one-pager, whatever you want to call it, on each topic, it is also something that will help the strike force, to educate the public as they're going through this process. So being that the strike force are the people and representatives in our community, the 13 people that have been selected to make sure that the voices of our community are heard, I feel confident that if we have those one-sheeters and they have the ability to review them and make sure that they are robust and have the information that people may have issue with, that it would be okay to have them look it over and make sure that they approved it as a strike force before it went out to the community. But I do think it'd be worth having some budget for our marketing firm Buoy & Company to do it, since we don't have probably the staff or volunteer time to do it. And we have the reports available, we just don't have the executive summaries of it. I just wanted to throw that out there as something that I think would be helpful to our community.
And appreciate it. I'm wondering if maybe instead of summarizing the results of the studies, perhaps what you do is summarize the rationale for why we commissioned the study. Because that's, in my mind, at least something unequivocal and quantifiable. Somebody can go back and check those records, right? Why we hired whatever body to undertake the IIP or the commercial corridor study. Perhaps that's a way to go about it. But as far as synthesizing the data, again, guys, I mean, I don't know, call me gun shy, but that's, by my estimations, what triggered some of this conversation. So I don't know how you do that effectively without running a risk of repeating the sins of old. So, but I will digress. Thankfully, there are 5 other wonderful, educated minds on this dais, and you guys get to make that decision. So.
But Mike?
Yes, ma'am.
One of the comments that I made to the strike force, one of my concerns with the survey is kind of exactly this point, is that there is so much information available, and we're asking really specific questions related to that. And I think
we're not providing a level of context around those very specific questions.
Well, and it gets to be overwhelming, where then people just answer the questions without, they either don't answer the questions or they are tempted to answer the questions without really thoroughly understanding all of the background information.
Sure.
And that what I was most interested in getting feedback from the community on was kind of their vision of Rollingwood, not specifically which drainage projects do they think are most important, or you know, how big is City Hall and when should we upgrade it more? What is important to us in this community? What do we need to be focusing on? Because then if we know what's most important, then we know what to focus on, and we have more of the background and all these other things, and it tells us where to focus our resources and where to, you know, spend our time and money. And it, instead of trying to get the residents to make these really specific determinations.
Sarah, you and I mean, you said it much more eloquently than I ever could, to be honest with you, but you and I could not be in more agreement on this. You know, there's a reason there's 6 of us that are put up here, right? It was discussed at the strike force. I believe Ryan correctly pointed out we're a representative democracy, and we are the ones that are charged with taking in all of this information. And I'm very proud of the 5 people that I'm currently serving with, because I know you guys do a tremendous job taking in all that information and synthesizing it. And the idea, as I understood it from the strike force and from really just trying to keep your finger on the pulse of the community, is to understand what the community wants and needs, and ideally understand the difference between the two. And then it's kind of up to us to provide the level of direction for our administration to execute on delivering on those wants and needs. But again, I digress. And if the public is saying they want specifics and they want to take in the data, which I have heard them say before, and they have said in public forums, then you know, that's one of the reasons why we did put all the public or made all the data readily accessible. Again, I just, you know, I don't know that you can have it every way. You know, you don't want things summarized for you, but you want to see the raw data. You want to work through the raw data. You don't want it to be influenced, but then you want somebody to go back and summarize the raw data for you, which, you know, I mean, I don't know. Again, that's just me, and I'd love for somebody else to walk me through how you square that circle. Yes, sir, Gavin.
Yeah, I'll just say I don't disagree with anything any of you have said, and I don't think that I don't agree with all of the inputs, and I suspect that I'm not going to agree with a lot of the outputs. But I also have no interest in micromanaging this survey. I love that the community and the strike force has taken ownership and has worked hard on this. Again, I may or may not agree with all of it, but I personally have no interest in micromanaging it. I think we task them with something, and it's in my opinion, up to them to do it how they see fit to do it, and we'll work with what we get back. And it will most likely affect how I vote on things. And if I choose to not go in a certain direction, I'll decide at that time why and make my case for it. But I just personally have no interest in micromanaging the process. So that's where I am.
Thank you, Gavin. Ryan, you have your hand raised. Tom did have his hand raised a little bit before that. We took it down. Tom, were you wanting to say something?
Let Ryan go, and then I'll.
Got it. Ryan, floor.
Sure. I just wanted to say that, at the beginning of our last strike force meeting, I very much posed this question to the strike force, which is, and it was really triggered by Sarah's comments, which I took to heart. Sorry, Councilmember Hudson's questions that I took to heart, which is this a vision thing or is this a policy thing? And I don't think ultimately strike force knew where the answer to that. So please, I guess I would say to Councilmember Massingill's question, please don't think because this is where it is now, that means we're telling that we're at a final resolution. I think we're at a stage where if the council said, look, we want to dial back all of these policy questions and we really want this to be more of a vision thing, we can do that. If the council as a whole is saying, no, we like the policy questions, we want them in there, we understand we might not get the best, most knowledgeable responses, then that's fine too. So while I greatly appreciate the desire not to micromanage, I think this is a point in this process where, to the extent council has a view on what the ultimate goal of this should be and whether we should dial it back. It's getting long. I want to say it's 38 questions or so now. And that was one of the concerns raised at the strike force. Is it too long? There's some questions that won't take but a few seconds, but so I do think that we're asking for input, and I don't want you to be afraid to tell us, I don't like it. I want it to be something else, because I do think it's, as I said at the strike force meeting, it's more important for us to get it right than it is to get it out this month. And so to the extent that you guys have strong feelings on the overall framework of it, and the council has a vision for it that's different than the product of the process that it's been through, I think we'd want to hear it and we'd want to get it right.
Thank you, Ryan. Tom?
Well, I think Ryan said it perfectly on that. And Sarah, we did take your comments very seriously, and we discussed them, but it was just timing was not good for us to get a draft out to the council for this meeting, for the city council meeting.
Right. No, I know that, and I appreciate it. That was at the strike force meeting, so I just wanted the rest of council to know what my concern was, since they weren't all on that meeting.
And I think one of the issues came up is that the last survey that Pegasus did, there were a lot of policy issues that were kind of put in there from a financial standpoint. And I feel like we need to kind of address some of those as we go through this. Can we do it with a one pager? Some of these are fairly complicated issues, and I would, we may do the summary of the reason it was done. I could see that. The results, I would like to just go back and let people read the actual reports themselves. That's me. And I know it's a lot of reading and it's a lot of work, but if it's there, if somebody wants to take the time to look at it. And I think that's good to make it available to all our citizens on there. So, but I think Ryan hit the nail on the head. If we don't have a firm timeline, I would like to get this out before the meeting, but if we don't, we don't. I'd rather do it right, and I agree with that. And if we want to try to redirect this more to the vision rather than policy, we certainly can do that. I think there's some policy issues that were raised during the presentation of Pegasus that we probably need to at least address in the survey and have websites that people can go to and actually see why that was done that way on that. I hope that made sense.
Always does, Tom. Thank you. Yeah, go ahead, Amy.
I appreciate the opportunity to make some comments, and I also can relate to Gavin in not wanting to micromanage. I made a few small comments before the last strike force meeting, and one of my primary comments was there was one question where I felt like it would be more beneficial to me to see the results if it was if the community were given the opportunity to evaluate each of the items in the question rather than prioritizing the items. And then I felt like there were some ambiguities in that question. But I suppose that some feedback that I would have is that I'm challenged because I do have feedback on probably almost all of the questions. If I were to actually go through and consider what questions I have as a council member about the information that's being provided, the assumptions that are being made, and the goal of asking the question and the type of data that we might get back. But I feel like the feedback that we've gotten from the community is that the council needs to step back and let our residents lead this charge. And so that's really a challenging place for me to be, because I would like to give quite a bit of feedback, but I also don't want this survey to appear to have been influenced or biased by any particular council member and thereby not achieve what our residents have told us they want, which is a resident-directed, resident-led survey. So I think that's where the challenge point is. And so if the council as a whole wanted to go through question by question, I would be glad to give feedback, but I appreciate that many of the council members are not wanting to do that and it not be micromanaged. And so I feel like I would just in general, I think two general comments I would have would be to go through the survey and think about it from the perspective of someone who has not been as actively involved in listening to all of the discussion that we've all had for the last 6 months, maybe, and also who may not know the definitions of all the terms. One example I would have is the question that's in there about condominiums and apartments. I don't know that our population knows the difference between a condo or an apartment. I don't know that I know the definition or the difference between a condo and an apartment to the extent that it would allow me to answer those survey questions about condos and apartments. I don't know what those would, I don't know why those two terms are different and how they would actually get executed in our community. So that's like one example of just, as I read through it, I was trying to think through it from the perspective of somebody who hasn't been like as deeply ingrained in all the conversations. And I know that, you know, one of the criticisms we got from the last survey was that there was an assumption about real estate type terms being something that all of our community knew. And so I would say that that's an area where I feel like I don't want to see us repeat the same mistakes. I want to make sure that if we're using real estate type terms, that we make sure that our residents know what those terms mean and provide adequate information. So that's just one example. And one other one that just kind of, I guess, it just kind of hits me funny a little bit is the question about the water systems on question 13. There's an opportunity for someone to give their feelings about decommissioning the old water lines. And if we get a lot of strong opposition to decommissioning the old water lines, I'm going to need to do like a pretty significant follow-up survey to understand why. Right? I mean, so there's some things like that where I was just reading through it and trying to think about how I would answer and the type of feedback we might get and how that might help me make decisions in the future. And that was one where I thought, man, I don't know. But I also just, what it occurred to me on question 13 is that a lot of the things that are listed are things that I consider really important for our city to do to make sure that we have an adequate water supply to support not only our residents when they need water in their homes, but for fire suppression systems, if we had a wildfire, and also to make sure that we're providing clean water to everyone's homes. So I wonder if there could be kind of a look back at the whole survey as well, and just thinking about, are there questions right now that are phrased as prioritization questions that would be better phrased where people would actually go through the lines, and then other questions that have been phrased at where people could say, I'm strongly opposed to decommissioning the old water lines, and that might be a better prioritization question. So those are just some general feedback things I would have, is just make sure we've defined terms well, and consider the type of feedback that we're getting.
Right.
I can appreciate that, Amy, and I don't want this to sound flippant, but it might come across that way. I do not intend it that way. But in my estimation, it's a matter of, in kind of keeping with the water line conversation, and the community wants clean water, right? And we get feedback about the number of boil water notices that we get, whether regionally or citywide, right? And so that's the feedback that your elected officials receive. And then our policy is to, got it, their community wants and needs these things. So what do we have to do about it? Well, we have to replace old water lines, right? And then we say, how do we achieve that ends? Well, first you have to understand what your water system looks like, hence a study, and understanding the data. And then you have to understand how to pay for it. And so those, just to kind of give a little insight on how my brain ticks over on these things, I assume that doesn't seem anything radical there. I assume that my colleagues up here on the dais try to formulate things the same way. So I don't know how you, again, I'm back to, I don't know how you square that circle. But I do think I also would have some raised eyebrows on anybody answering that we don't need to replace water lines. So.
I think part of that is that it was just a point that we were trying to make, that there are priorities of our expenditures that came in.
And that's,
and I would hope that we would, clean water is obviously it's high on the list, if not on the top of the list.
And that's fair. Again, and Tom, I appreciate the clarity. And again, I didn't mean for my comment to seem flippant so much as trying to be, give an analogy as to how I, and I think many others up here are trying to problem solve, for the city and the challenges that we face. Ryan, your hand's back up.
Sure. I just wanted to say that, I mean, I happen, again, this is where I want to make clear that just because Tom and I are here does not mean we care. Like we're not invested in the survey as written. We want to get it right. And so, that wasn't a question that I would have wanted in the survey. Because to me, if it's a mandatory thing, right? If it doesn't matter if the citizens oppose it because you have to do it, then for me, I wouldn't put it in there. So that's just like, I think that's a place where we can get, again, feedback. The vision versus policy is one thing, but does it even matter to get feedback? Is that helpful on something that you have to do? I think Councilmember Hunley and I talked about roads, paving roads. Should that be in there? She's like, well, we have to pave our roads. We're going to pave our roads. Do we want to question about paving roads? Those are the kind of things that I do think it's helpful to get feedback on and get direction from the council.
And again, these were policy issues that were addressed in the original deal that we, rather than leave them out. I understand the position, and you obviously have to do certain things, and they're really not policy issues. They're just priorities of spending that come in. Sure. They may be number one or number two, but they still have to be prioritized on how we go about doing it. So, but we'll take that into consideration, and that's a good point. And From a standpoint of, yes, it's going to be done by the comprehensive planning task force on this, strike force. But I certainly want to get the comments from my council and mayor on this. And to me, that's something that, there are points that we may miss because you're dealing with this every day right now. And, you do have a very bright group. I have a very bright group working with me on that. I'm easily the dumbest on the whole group on this, and I acknowledge that going forward. So that's why
they move us. That's why they move us up to chief spokespersons, Tom.
That's right.
That's why. Hey, you don't vote. You just sit over here and conduct the band.
I got it.
That's the real
no, I don't hesitate to do that. Now, I will tell you, as we go through the strike force, we've got a lot of strong people, and they may not put everything in there, but I certainly would like to see your comments on that. This is not going to be directed by the council, and I can assure everybody of that. Don't get your feelings hurt if we don't do it that way, but I would like to get your comments on that. So. And I have a high amount of respect for our council. So I would love to hear what they have to say and make sure that we can include what we can include in there.
Tom, and I've mentioned this before, so it's not news, but from my standpoint, I envision this as a vision document, and the strike force was charged by my estimations of telling us kind of what they see from a 30,000 foot view, so to speak. What do you guys want this city to be? We started this process. Mayor McKee, Roxanne was a big fan of asking. We got to or saying we got to determine what we want our city to look like, right? And she's not wrong, but that's the actionable way to go about that. Was to start talking in terms of an actionable plan and putting a framework in place for action, right? And Roxanne knew that as well as I'm sure any number of previous mayors did, which is why we have this historical reports and data that we can fall back on, and we've continued in that trend. And these are the next natural iterations by many estimations of that. So from my standpoint, I think the strike force, the task there, my hope is that the strike force represents the pulse of the community, accurately represents the pulse of the community. Send it over to your 5 policymakers. Get the 5 policymakers to give you a thumbs up, a thumbs down, understand what they're supposed to enact on behalf of the citizenry. And then you have a very competent, a very capable city staff and administration that are able to start executing that policy and putting those policies in place in a practical manner. That's, I think in a perfect world, that's how this would fall down from my perspective. And I recognize that's one perspective, and it may not. I certainly don't want to be speaking for everybody on the dais, but if that's the direction, unequivocal answer that you're looking for, that's mine.
Right. Well, we will continue, and this was our first draft that we wanted to come through, and yes, we wanted to get everybody's comments, and they're valued, and we will work on that. So thank y'all. And if you just follow up with them, we'll make sure we include them on that. Thank you.
And I will say this on behalf of everybody up here, because I know we all are thinking it. We appreciate all the time that the strike force is putting in. As a matter of fact, we're just commenting on the fact that we have all of our boards and commissions filled, and then we somehow grabbed 13 more people and got them involved. And so I obviously haven't gone back and fact checked this, so I won't say it definitively, but I would say that we probably have more involved voices now than we certainly have any time in our recent history anyway. So thanks to everybody that's putting the time in this community is better when we all throw a little bit extra in, right? So
Well, I think,
thanks for everything you guys are doing, Tom.
Ryan did a great job with this. Brooke did a great job, and David did a great job. So we're moving forward, and we'll get this done for you on that. So, but I do want your comments.
Got it.
Thank
All
you.
right. Council, write your comments, send them in. Okay. If there's nothing else on 6 and 7, we'll move on to presentations, and we're going to try to pick up the pace here as we go forward, guys. We're an hour and a half in. Presentations, Abel, I see you. I see you there. I keep trying to take my eyes off of Gavin's static picture. It's too fantastic.
Can you hear me now?
I can. Yes, sir.
Okay. On the budget review, Mayor, we're at 25% through the fiscal year through the end of December. And some of the items that I'd like to point out to council, property taxes so far, we're ahead of, in terms of dollars, how much we collected compared to the last year. But bear in mind that our debt service also went up. So that's one reason why our collections in terms of dollars are up. And our city sales taxes, other revenue stream, it's a little bit behind what we collected last year at this point in time. But we're ahead of where we need to be as far as the budget is concerned. So I think we're okay there for the time being anyway. Water sales are up compared to last year. However, on wastewater, we're behind. So as you know, water sales are dependent on what's going on with the weather, whether it's a wet or dry season. So that may go up, may go down, who knows? Overall, the general fund on revenue is slightly behind. But then again, on the expenditures, we also have not spent as much as we did last year. So in that regard, our fund balance should be okay for the current year. Same thing on the water fund, because of the increased sales, the water fund is in good shape. Wastewater though, like I said before, revenue is a little bit behind last year, and our expenditures up a little more than last year. So I think we need to keep an eye on the wastewater fund overall. Any questions on our budget so far?
More comments, I guess, than questions at this point. We would, given what we've just endured in the world and economically, we would assume that our sales tax would be a little bit behind at this stage. Is that fair?
Yes, sir. And we're only about $5,000 behind what we collected last year. So
not by much.
No, sir.
Unless you consider that historically we were growing. So we're behind.
Our last year, our sales tax compared to the previous year, we're down a little bit.
Okay.
But considering that when we prepared the budget for the 2021 fiscal year, we took that into consideration. Yeah. And so our sales taxes percentage-wise, we're at 31% of the budget, where budget through the fiscal year would have been at 25%. So I think our estimation of sales taxes when we prepared the budget, I think that was a pretty guesstimate that we adopted to make sure that we're conservative and didn't have any fiscal surprises during the fiscal year. So, but like I said, sales taxes compared to what we could have been on with this pandemic, I think we're in good shape.
Thanks, Abel. And I just commend everybody at the city. A key point there that wasn't lost on me, and I hope not lost on anybody else in the public. Our expenditures are down this year compared to last. So thank you all for being very mindful of how you're spending the city's money and watching the bottom line.
Yes, we're at 22% on the expenditure side compared to where we're at 25% the fiscal year. And expenditures throughout the year are more or less level. We don't go up and down that much on the expenditure side. So we're trying to conserve as much as we can on the expenditures, considering the fiscal uncertainty that we're facing with the pandemic. So I think the city's doing pretty good as far as being conservative on the expenditure side.
Great. Thank you very much, Abel. Do you have anything to add on the first quarter, or council, would you have any questions for Abel regarding the first Q? Okay, not seeing any. I'll go ahead and open up item 9, presentation. Abel, you're back on deck for the quarterly investment report.
Okay, the city currently invests all its funds with Textful. We have, this for all funds, general fund, water fund, wastewater fund. We currently have about close to $536,000 invested with Textful. And our yields have gone down from the first quarter, which is October, through the end of December. And as a result, that has reflected a decrease in how much interest we've collected. Right now, I would say probably our yield is around 9 basis points in December compared to the beginning of the fiscal year, which was about 13%. 13 basis points in October. It's hard to say whether it's going to be going up or down. That's a little bit above my pay grade in terms of making any predictions in terms of future yields, what direction they're going to go. But one thing about Textpool, I do believe that the city's funds are securely invested with Textpool as far as safety is concerned.
Well, probably not a good idea to liken it to gambling, but I guess we'll just let the bet ride, right?
Yes, sir.
Right on. Thank you, Abel.
You're welcome.
Council, do we have any questions on the quarterly investment report? Not hearing any. Abel, thanks,
Yes,
sir. Have a good night.
Okay, thank you.
Item 10, recognition of the 2020 Spirit of Rolling Wood Citizenship Awards. I had the distinct honor of recognizing some of our superlatives in our community. There are many, but we thought going into our 65th year, and certainly it was a doozy of a year for most of us. One of the things we wanted to emphasize was a couple of the things really, or the thing that probably makes Rolling Wood the strongest and the best it possibly can be. And in truth, that's the citizenry, right? The character of the folks that we have living in our community is outstanding. And one of the things I had the great pleasure of doing is being able to recognize 5 members of our community that were nominated by their fellow friends, neighbors, and residents for their good works, specifically Ryan Clinton, Tom Farrell, Roseanne Ferraro, Sivagami Nadasan, and Matt Silk. It's most of you guys probably know a number of those names on there, if not all. These are the folks that they show up with a warm meal for your neighbor when they need it. They're the ones that put on their waders and grab their shovels when the pipes break in the middle of the night. They're the ones that voice a rallying cry when public voices are needed. They're the ones that ensure that nobody is going hungry, and that they know there's not just the people in their community, or there are not just people in their households, but a great community that stands behind them when times are a little tougher. This is, in my estimation, what makes Rolling Wood the fantastic place it is. And I couldn't have been prouder to recognize 5 of our citizens who, when all of us were faced with challenging times. You had 5 that really just stood up and just took a very, what I would consider admirable and honorable path for all of us. So keep your eyes out, guys, for there'll be a press release that talks a little bit more about how these 5 individuals contributed so significantly to our community. And there's a link on our website. Go and check them out. Most of these guys, it was like pulling teeth for them to get a picture. On top of being phenomenal residents, they're wonderful, just humble human beings that I thought it was fairly ridiculous that they were there taking a photo and being honored in such a way, because at the end of the day, that wasn't their motivation. Part of what makes them great folks at the end. In any case, I won't belabor the point, but they are on, in truth, a long list of really outstanding folks that we have in our community. And it's my sincere hope that as we go forward, as we move forward, we never shy away from hoisting up those who really embody the characteristics that make Rollingwood the greatest little town, I'd say in the state, but probably in the nation too. I haven't visited all the ones around the nation, so I don't want to get too many of them angry at it. In any case, it's my hope that we don't ever shy away from letting our friends and neighbors know that we really appreciate them, and really just thank you to those 5 for letting us at the city recognize you in the way, because I know it was kind of maybe a little bit of an unnatural feeling for some of you. So it sends a great message for the rest of the community, and it's humbling for me to have been able to honor you guys in that way. So thank you. Ryan, you have your hand up, please.
I just have one quick comment. First of all, thank you. But more importantly, throughout this process, I have gotten a tiny little glimpse of how much work each of you does for this community. Just in my tiny little part has been at times overwhelming time commitment. And so I know you guys aren't going to ever recognize yourselves, but I do profoundly appreciate the time that the mayor and the council and the staff put in to make this community run. So thank all of you as well.
Thanks, Ryan. Okay, again, I don't want to belabor the point because we do have a lot of stuff here, but we do have fantastic people here. They live here, they work here. Give them high fives. They're the part that make the city, the comfortable place, the wonderful place that we call home. So with that, I will move on to the consent agenda. Any chance I can get a motion?
I would move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We'll do a roll call vote. Sarah?
Well, I was going to ask if we can pull number 13 and vote on that separately.
Okay. We have a request to pull 13. Do we need more than one? Does that work? Sorry, remind me. I've slept, or maybe I haven't slept enough.
Just one person is sufficient for pulling it.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so we'll pull 13 then. And so do we need to amend the motion, Charlie? Or is it still good to, with the motion on the table, to go for 12 and 14?
Yeah, it's good.
Okay. Okay, so consent to 12 and 14. Sarah Hudson?
Aye.
Amy Patillo?
Aye.
Wendy Hundley?
Aye.
Evan Massengill?
Aye.
Buck Shapiro?
Aye.
Ayes have it. We'll go ahead and pull item 13, discussion and possible action on ordinance 2020-01-20-13, amending section 257, presiding officer, mayor pro tem, council liaisons of the city's code of ordinances. Sarah, I'll go ahead and give you the floor.
I don't need any discussion on this. We had it at the last meeting. I just wanted to be able to vote on this separately from the other two.
Oh, okay. Got it. Okay, well then, do we have a motion, council?
I move to.
Okay.
Go ahead, Wendy.
You both spoke and now you're both muted.
Okay, I'm trying the space bar trick for the first time. So do I have to keep holding it down? Does anybody know?
It didn't work for me, so good luck.
Okay, thank you. It's working as long as I hold it down. It's saying I'm temporarily unmuted. And during my temporary unmuting, I would move to approve the amendment to ordinance 20. Well, I would move to approve ordinance 2020-01-20-13, amending section 2-57, presiding officer, mayor pro tem, council liaisons of the city's code of ordinances.
Okay, we have a motion from Amy and a second from Wendy. Discussion, council?
If I press Control Command on my Apple, then that unmutes, not spacebar. So maybe that might work for you, Charlie, if you're on an Apple.
All right.
I don't know what happened. I'll try it again later, but I'm a little scared.
Perfect. Do we have comments on the motion on the table? Not hearing any. I'll call for the vote. Sarah Hudson?
No.
Amy Patillo?
Aye.
Wendy Hundley?
Aye.
Gavin Massengill?
Aye.
Buck Shapiro?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Okay, thank you very much. And we will move on to item 15. Discussion and possible action to affirm U.S. Capital Advisors as the city's financial advisor and to approve an updated contract for financial advisory services. We have James Gilly with us and sorry, we've got a lot of pictures here. Jay Kennedy is with us. Amber Lewis, would you want to give us some context here? And I'm happy to actually provide a little bit of context. Guys, it has been many, many moons since we went out with an RFP based on the sorry, I distracted, completely lost my place. A long time since we went on an RFP under the terms of our city ordinances, where we review the any of our third-party contractors who have been on been providing services for, I believe it's 5 years. And so our financial advisors were on deck for that. These folks are all presented many, many moons ago. And then a pandemic happened. And what we ended up doing was moving forward with U.S. Capital Advisors in a advisory capacity and a number of capacities, actually, including working with them with the strike force. So here we are to make it official. Let everybody know that we're an item, right, James? We're a thing. So with that is why this is on the agenda. Amber, did I miss anything with my cutesy description of why we drugged James away from his family tonight?
Right. I think, we've gotten, we engaged them for the issuance of the tax notes. Since then, Strike Force has actively engaged them and used them as a consultant. And so, have gotten great feedback. They always turn things around very quickly and do an excellent job. And it would be city staff's recommendation to stay with U.S. Capitol Advisors.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're largely doing that, but I will defer to my 5 colleagues that get to make that official.
I
Decide
move
whether we
to
make
affirm. I move to affirm U.S. Capitol Advisors as the city's financial advisor and to approve an updated contract for financial advisory services.
Second.
We have a motion from Wendy and a second from Amy. Do we have discussion, council? Okay, not hearing any. I'll call vote. Sarah Hudson.
Aye.
Amy Patillo.
Aye.
Wendy Hundley.
Aye.
Gavin Massengill.
Aye.
Buck Shapiro.
Aye.
Great. James, welcome back to the team officially.
Thank you. It's an honor.
We're very glad to have you.
Thank you.
All right. Hopefully not too unceremonious, but have a great night.
Thank you very much.
And next up, we have Jay Kennedy for items 16 and 17. Discussion and possible action on a contract with WSB Engineering to perform easement location and identification services for the city of Rolling Wood. Council, if you recall, we discussed about this last month, and this is in furtherance of decisions that were made, ideally setting a scope of services and I guess to update largely on how this project would be undertaken. Amber, what color do you want to provide us there, or should I yield the floor to Jay?
Accurate. I think the council directed us to revise his scope to include maintenance costs, which is in front of you. And I think we could turn it over to Jay if you want to add anything.
Amber, thank you. Mayor, members of the council. I don't really have a lot to add. Amber characterized it correctly. We did add some estimates for a couple things. One, maintaining the data, but at least right now it looks like we can obtain data from Travis County and that will have little to no cost related to it. That might change, in which case we'd update the council in the future. And then we provided some estimated costs for adding individual easements. You know, once we get through this first phase, if there isn't a necessarily new contract, each easement that would be added if you get a new one or something changes. So we added those 2 items, and then we did talk a little bit about schedule, just to give the council some idea. I think there'll be some effort in terms of collecting the data that the city has. Once we're able to do that, we think it's about a 60 to 90-day process to go through all of that and get it added into the system, and then come back and show you where we're at.
Okay, makes a fair amount of sense. Council, do we have any thoughts or questions on that?
I do have one question that I just thought about when I was reading through this again today, and it may just be easy for you to answer because I'll put this agreement together. Does this include identifying our easements in the commercial district and rights of way? And also, is there an option to add on identifying where our utilities are in the commercial district? Because I know that's something that we'll need to have identified for TxDOT if we're going to move forward with the Bee Cave improvement project. So just kind of thought we might put that together with this as well.
Mayor, would you like me to respond?
Yes, sir, please.
Thank you. The scope that we have in place is to collect records that the city has. Doesn't matter what district it's in, as long as it's within the city. Whatever records you have, we're going to be able to easily take those, work through those, and get those mapped. anything that's going to involve research over at Travis County, or, a deeper dive into figuring out where easements are. We didn't include that in this first phase and we did that on purpose because we thought, let's find the easy stuff first and then see where we're at and then come back to the council. If the council wanted to zero in on a specific area and say, look, we really want you to look at X, Y, or Z, whatever that is, we can work with staff to develop what we think it would take to do that as a separate item.
So just to clarify, the easy stuff is what we have in Rollingwood?
So the
Yeah.
city has records of their own, like in its own files, right?
We do? Like,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's probably harder, actually, all the stuff we have in Iron Mountain to get, okay.
They don't know that yet.
Yeah.
Oh, let's sign the agreement quick.
Well, there's definitely going to be some effort in collecting the data, and we're going to need some help from the city staff, obviously, because they know where it is more than we do anyway. And so once we have it, then we can figure out, okay, what is it that we have? Because we don't know.
Are you going to digitize our records while you're at it?
The easements, we would scan the easement documents, and then those get attached to the actual easement that's shown on the map, so that it creates a database, so that then later, when you want to find that document, you don't have to go to Iron Mountain or whatever you call, whatever term you used for it. You'd find those documents pretty easily then.
Yep. And so then, just to, again, to emphasize, the idea here is to provide that level of modernization of our records, so that we're not relying on hard copies that may or may not be readily located, number one. But number two, also being able to kind of have a baseline from which to start working on these next levels of projects, right? And so when we start talking in terms of phase 2, phase 3, whatever, however that looks, we can take a targeted approach. For instance, earlier today we discussed Hubbard Circle, for instance, and that system. We've also discussed work in around Nixon and Pleasant. What we can do is have a targeted approach that suggests, we're working in region 3 drainage basin. We're going to need to approach this water system from this standpoint. We need to know what existing easements we have, what options we have, and what other options we're going to have to secure to facilitate whatever our engineers suggest is the right, the right course of action. So that's the idea, again, is to start laying some groundwork for a level of modernization for our record keeping, and provide the tools for us to quickly and readily assess projects going forward, such that we may be able to scale down, say, 90 days in prep work down to, 45, 30. However we're able to do that. Basically, improved efficiencies is the idea.
I have a question for clarification. I think it's maybe similar to something Wendy was asking. So an example of the city's records would, like last month we heard about, we had the appeal before us on the driveway issue. And during the meeting, we then received a copy of the plat, which was a document that was the original platting of the Timberline neighborhood. Is that then an example of a document that would be used, that the city has to identify the easements in that area?
Yes, a plat would be one. Another would be just individual easement documents, which sometimes are recorded after a plat is already in place. Sometimes somebody grants an easement. And so those types of records is where we would start. And we would get that information and pull all of it together so that it could be mapped in basically a GIS format that can then be built on not only with easements, but if the city wanted to, as you look at your water system and sewer system, it's easy to put that on top of this. So that's, to the mayor's point, kind of the basis for that system. But those are a couple examples of where you'd find easement documents.
So if you had, for instance, if we didn't have in our files a subdivision plat and you had to go to Travis County to locate the document, then that would be an additional charge above what we have in the scope of services here.
It could be, boy, it's hard to give a, it could be, here's what I'm getting. Let's say we think we have a bunch of records and we come over and we only have 30 easements. Well, that's not going to take very much time to put that in. So within the budget we have, we could then shift and start that deeper dive within the budget we have, okay? If we come in, because we don't know how many we're going to find. If we find 200 or 300, that's going to fit within the budget. We're going to complete that. And then if you wanted to take a deeper dive and get over to Travis County, yes, we would work with the council to talk about what that would take to do that additional research.
Thank you for that information. Mayor, can I clarify? We have item 16 and we have item 17. So if we voted to approve the contract with WSB, number 17 is written as a future amendment. Are we able to approve that contract before we actually have the budget amendment before us?
That is a great question and a technical question that I will defer over to staff.
Yes, unless Charlie disagrees with me. The idea here was, since it was a large range, we wanted to give council the opportunity to pick, what they felt was most appropriate, and then bring an actual budget amendment back for approval, which reflected the council's wishes.
And I don't have any, there's no legal issue with doing it that way.
And you're meaning the range because of different types of maintenance? That's what I'm identifying as the different variables. Is that correct?
Correct. And Ashley, feel free to chime in here.
Yeah, if you look at the one sheet in agenda item 17, I kind of laid out in a chart for the phase 1 easement mapping. He gave 15,000 to 22,500. So basically, however much the council feels comfortable budgeting for each of the items that may have a range, then we would know, about how much to make the budget amendment for.
I guess I would say let's go for the lower amount and see what they come back with and what it looks like here. And then if we need more later, we can do another budget amendment.
That works for us.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, is if I were to make a motion, do I need to clarify which budget option we're going with, or would we, and what Wendy just said, can we just start with the lowest option and then see what the next stage of results are, and then make decisions about year 2 and other issues?
Seems like a sound approach.
Charlie, I don't think she needs to amend her motion. Do you?
No, I mean, so long as it's straight and on record with respect to what actions are being taken.
Charlie's muted again.
You didn't hear me? Are you not hearing me?
You faded out. I don't know if you were still talking.
Okay, no, there's no need to, I'm in the motion, so long as everything is straight on the, everybody's straight with what's happening, that's fine. And it's properly recorded in the minutes after we do it.
Okay, everybody clear on? Okay. Well, we don't have a motion yet.
We don't have a motion. I think I can make one. I just was trying to make sure that I included budget terms so that it accurately reflects what we're doing. So I would move to approve a contract with WSB Engineering to perform easement location identification services for the city of Rollingwood. As proposed for up to $15,500.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, maybe a second from Wendy. Do we have additional discussion, council? Not hearing any. Sarah Hudson?
Aye.
Amy Patillo?
Aye.
Wendy Huntley?
Aye.
Buck Shapiro?
Aye.
Okay. And we let the record reflect that Gavin is somewhere over, approximately 30,000 feet above the great state of Texas at this point. And I have promised him that we will not still be on this call when he lands. So he's not going to be rejoining us, but that's on all of us to get this job done. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Jay, looking forward to working with you guys as we get the next bit of modernization sorted out from our end. All right.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Have a good night.
Thanks, you too. Thanks for joining. Okay. You know what, guys, I apologize. We've had at least one guy waiting here. Dave Bench has been waiting very patiently for us on this. Item 20, discussion and possible action to review applications and make appointments to Park Commission, Utility Commission, RCDC, Planning and Zoning Commission, and the Board of Adjustment. We have only one position available, just became available after accepting resignation tonight. We have 3 potential applications for this position. It is on Planning and Zoning. We have Michael Hall, Mr. Harvey, and Dave Bench, who have all indicated that they are interested in serving on the Planning and Zoning. Mr. Bench has joined us any number of times, and I deeply appreciate the fact that he continues to offer his services to the community. With that, I will open it up to the council for consideration. I guess one other point, I did reach out to all 3 candidates. Unfortunately, I was only able to get in touch with Mr. Bench. That said, I did not give them a lot of lead time, unfortunately. It was only today. So it is not a disparagement at all to the other 2 applicants. And if they catch on to this meeting, please do still feel free to give me a call. With that, council, how do you feel? How do you feel about filling that vacancy?
Hey, Mike,
Yes, ma'am.
I would propose that we postpone this appointment until next month.
Okay.
And that I believe that these applications were all submitted as part of the strike force submittal when we were getting applications for everybody from the strike force. And
Okay.
it would be nice to confirm that the people that have submitted applications are still interested in serving.
So, yeah.
And also, I appreciate Mr. Bench's perseverance, but it is my understanding that he is not yet a resident of Rollingwood, which is a requirement to serve on our boards and commissions. So I think since we haven't confirmed anybody else, their current interest, that we would be best served just to postpone this for another month.
Okay, thank you, Sarah.
I'll defer to Sarah and Gavin since they're the P&Z liaisons on this.
Unfortunately, Gavin is in the air, so we'll take Sarah under advisement. Buck, Amy? Not hearing anything. Going once, going twice.
I'll just echo what Wendy said. I hope to get a recommendation from Sarah and Gavin since they're the liaisons. And I suppose, Mr. Bench, I've always really appreciated when you've been at our council meetings in the past. And I don't know what the residency question is about, but I look forward to you serving on one of our boards and commissions in the future. So if that's something that you can work out with our staff and make sure we've had that checked with our city attorney before the next meeting, I think that would help us in making decisions.
Thank you very much.
I agree that too. I also enjoy having you at our meetings. So thank you for participating.
I tell you what, if nothing else, patience of a saint.
Hey, it gave me a chance to try out these headphones. So
they look great.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
Get some of those. They might actually help me hold back this ridiculous mop. I keep growing.
I mean, the fact that you were able to maintain your composure when Councilmember Hunley asked you if you wanted a moat in your yard, one of the top moments for me in city council meetings in Rollingwood history.
Well, yes. Well, we like to be informed by many things, so it's good. I appreciate really the opportunity to at least be considered, and
Well, don't go too far because it sounds like we'll be calling you back next month.
Right. So it is no criticism of your abilities, skill, interest, any of that. When are you moving in?
Well, we're not moved in yet. We're scheduled to move in March, but I have had my residency changed. So.
Well, but if you don't have a certificate of occupancy, you are not living in the house yet, right? So you can't be considered a resident until you actually have a home in Rollingwood that is livable.
Yeah.
And
That
you're living
would
in
be a
it.
question for our legal counsel, I believe. So that's
Yeah,
why I
they
suggested that we
will.
have our
Yeah,
legal
that's-
counsel evaluate that.
Sarah, I will do what I need to, but eventually you'll find me there.
And-
I'm
handy.
I look forward to that.
So do I. More than you can imagine, I promise. We've gotten the virus has been an issue for us, and it's held us back probably about 4 or 5 months now. And we've been in compliance with the rules of Rollingwood as far as having contractors on site and trying to keep the numbers down, and we've been trying to be good citizens about it all. So
Appreciate that. Sure,
but I hear you. It's fine. It is what it is, right? We are where we are.
Don't worry. I will tell you, Dave, people know this. I will assuredly recruit you for some level of service as soon as we are allowed to do that.
Very
So,
good.
we don't let our residents who stick their head up avoid being recruited for something. So that if there's a lesson here, keep your head down. You're
All
gonna
right.
be put to work. So
Okay.
when in all seriousness, though, we look forward to working with you, and
Okay.
best of luck with the home project.
Thank you.
Look forward to calling you a neighbor.
All right. It's a pleasure to see you all again.
Likewise. You guys stay safe and healthy.
I'm going to do that. Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Okay, well, that's the only option. So we'll go ahead and postpone that for next month then. And then we will jump back up to 18, discussion and possible action to appoint a planning and zoning commission representative to the comprehensive plan strike force. To my knowledge, there is nobody on our planning and zoning commission currently that has the available bandwidth to take on the additional time demand of joining strike force. So no one for you guys to consider yet. Maybe reach out to your representatives or your friends on the planning and zoning and give them a good nudge. And hopefully we can convince one of them to serve on the strike force in that vacancy. I do think it is, it's probably pretty critical, if not one of the most critical. It's maybe the most critical position, vacancy to have filled on our strike force. It is a comprehensive plan after all, and our planning and zoning should probably have a voice in that. So with any luck, we can have somebody teed up for that next month as well. Fingers crossed. Anybody else? Comments, thoughts? A dark horse that I wasn't aware of that really is desperately wanting to do this? Okay. Well, hopefully that changes. Item 19, discussion possible action to authorize the mayor to approve and execute contracts and other transactions with TML Health Benefits Pool. So in truth, I've already been critical of our city administration for not putting this on the consent agenda. But this is kind of par for the course for us, checking boxes. That said, it's not, so feel free to discuss it as council feels they desire.
Is it customary for the council to have approved the mayor to authorize these preemptively?
Ooh, good question.
Yes, it's what TML is asking us to do. I know this form is new, so I'm not sure if, what happened at TML for them to decide to start implementing this form.
Liability.
Yeah.
It's entirely up to council. You guys aren't hurting my feelings. I don't need carte blanche for anything.
So what kind of is it? How often do you have to make changes to TML's health benefits and health pool benefits?
It's going to be during the re-rate when they basically tell us what our new health insurance rates are. That has to be signed off on. I'm not aware of any other times that I wish it didn't say transactions, but it did in the heading. I'm not aware of any other times that it would require approval.
I mean, the question as I saw it, guys, and the reason I said this should have dropped on the consent agenda is unless council thinks they're going to step outside of TML for health benefits for our employees, then this is kind of the de facto health benefits pool.
Exactly.
So we don't.
Is it choosing new plans though? Like, is that what it, like, is it going to be like bronze, silver, gold, or is it just like what? So what sort of authority is it? Like, what are you choosing on that?
With
Because
that,
I just want to make sure that the employees get good health insurance, and I know you will take care of them, but you know, if it was something that, you know, we needed to like look at different plans and make sure that our employees have good coverage. I just
And it's certainly fair. And what I would anticipate is not signing off on anything that would be a deviation from anything that council has previously approved. That said, I mean, if everyone's more comfortable in reviewing the plans as they come forward, that's, again, you're not hurting my feelings. Not hurting my feelings at all. This is the process that was specifically requested by TML. So.
Abel, do you have any additional context on this that we haven't already given? Abel, do you have any additional context that we haven't already given?
I'm sorry, I got bumped off the internet. I just got back on, so I missed.
We're talking about, yeah, no problem, Abel. We're talking about the TML health pool
Yes.
benefits.
Okay, what's the question?
The question is whether they trust me not to screw you guys out of your health care. That's the executive summary. But really, no, what's really going on is this is a little bit of a deviation from how TML has handled this previously. And the question is from Amber, if I understand it correctly, is there any additional information that you have as to why TML is proposing this kind of process now?
Yeah, the city has long had an agreement with TML on the continuation of coverage, which is COBRA. And it was like a 1 or 2 page agreement. And it looked like their lawyers or something worked up a new agreement that's several pages long. And looking at it, I think it's just, I don't know, maybe it's a CYA kind of a deal. Nonetheless, they said you had 2 choices. You could, U.S. Mayor could authorize the city administrator or me or whoever that you so desired to be able to sign that particular agreement. Or you could take the city council and have city council authorize those signatures. But basically, all it is TML wanted to determine again who was authorized to make sign agreements with them. In the past, the city administrator had been signing the re-rates every time that every summer when they do the re-rates on health insurance. But apparently they want a more formal process, and that's what we're doing tonight.
Thank you, Abel. Council, does that, Amy, Wendy, does that help provide a little bit of context additional?
So previously, the things that the mayor would now be signing, the city administrator signed without it coming before the council?
No, we're talking about the continuation of coverage agreement, and that had been taken to city council. And when I had talked to TML in the past, they said as long as city council had approved it whenever, and I don't remember exactly when they had approved it, it was like several years ago, that was okay with them. But again, they now look like they had changed their protocol procedures, whatever you want to call it.
This is what it sounds like to me. It sounds like something happened somewhere with some city with respect to there wasn't any actual authority for an agreement to be signed. And so they got scared and they said, you know what, we're gonna have all of our folks formally approve a document that says that the mayor has the actual authority to sign these contracts. And that's how we're going to do this moving forward. That's what it sounds like, because the law is that the governing body has to approve contracts in order for them to be effective. So it sounds, I don't know for a fact, but it sounds like somebody did something and said, you didn't have the authority to do that. And so TML said, we're going to solve this problem. We're going to require everybody to authorize it through this agreement. That's what it sounds like to me.
City Council had approved the agreement with TML to provide health insurance back in 1986 or something like that. So that agreement had originally been approved by City Council, that TML was going to be their health insurance provider. So that was done. And again, we were talking about the continuation of coverage agreement that they had sent over. And so, but like Charlie said, I think it's just what they would just want to make sure that it was very clear as to who was had the authority to sign the agreements.
So just to clarify, we're not actually agreeing to any particular agreement. We're just agreeing that when the council approves something, then if the mayor has signed it, that means it's approved or authorized to be filed.
I haven't read the document, but what it sounds like is it says is that when City Council approves something, the mayor has the authority to execute it. It's a separate document establishing that the mayor has that authority. It would still require City Council to approve any agreement. You can't get around that. This just sounds like a document that they can have in their file that says, yeah, the mayor signed it and the City Council said he or she had the authority to do it.
That's what I wanted to clarify. So I would move to authorize the mayor. Well, I would move to add the mayor as the delegation person on the delegation of authority form for TML.
Do you need to put an expiration date? It says NA of no expiration date, but I suppose that means that Mayor Dyson just has to continue to be the mayor forever? Is that how we read that?
That is absolutely not what that means.
It seems like if we put NA, that might be the case. So just checking on that.
No, I am confident. I am confident that that is not, in fact, the case. But I appreciate your attempt.
Charlie, Charlie, if you're able to look at the form, could you tell us if I need to have an expiration date?
I'm pulling up what I think to be the packet, but I can't see. Where's this located in the packet?
It's
under
item
19, sorry.
19.
It may be good just to have the end of Mayor Dyson's term, just so that it comes up again before us, so that we put the new delegation on there and they don't have the old. Well, I guess that we could just keep having Mayor Dyson. We'll keep serving.
Let me try this again here. I may have pulled up the wrong. Yeah, okay, I think I have the right packet now. Okay, so.
Yeah, I mean, it depends, right? I think if you don't put an expiration time on there, you have to keep track of it internally. Right. So if I were to, if I'm the delegating authority, then the next mayor would be and then somebody on the administration.
Yeah, this doesn't need to have a date. It just has the person's name. And so, although we all recognize that Mayor Dyson is going to be the mayor for the next 20 years, on year 21, we can just put another name in there, do another approval form.
Well, it says effective date of delegation, expiration date of delegation and a if no expiration. So I would say to put in expiration so that it prompts them to have us fill out another form if they want their records to stay up to date.
I like
And
it.
not put it on us.
Like where your head's at. Let's drop that.
You could put, the expiration of his current term.
October 2021.
Well, I'm just going to amend my motion to have the expiration date be the end of Mayor Dyson's current term.
Perfect.
I will accept that friendly amendment.
Thank you.
Is it 2021? No, 2022. God, I got a long time.
Plenty of time for hair growth.
Yeah, man, I'm getting there. Getting there. I'm pretty sure Marcia gives up on me at some point and cuts it off. Okay, well, council, we have a first or a motion and a second. Any other discussion? We clear on what the motion is? Fantastic. Sarah Hudson?
Aye.
Amy Patillo?
Aye.
Wendy Hundley?
Aye.
Buck Shapiro?
Aye.
All right, thank you, council. All right, item 21, discussion and possible action regarding updates to the Rollingwood Transportation Strategy Report. Amy, I'm giving you the floor on this. You provided some background material. I did do a little bit of work going back. I know this goes back a few years. I don't think anything was formally adopted by council at any point, but my research is sometimes lacking. So please do feel free to provide us some context and get us kicked off if you wouldn't mind.
Sure, thanks. So I decided to put this on the agenda now just to get us talking a little bit about it. Also in view of the fact that we have comprehensive planning going on, I thought it might be a valuable document for the strike force to be able to see some of the work that had been done in the past. So what I did is I took a document that Wendy and I worked on in 2018, towards the end of 2018, that we called the draft Rollingwood Transportation Strategy. And I'll just say that right now there is only one strategy statement at the very top. And I think there's still some more strategic work to be done, clearly. But our overall strategy that we were looking at in kind of creating this catalog of issues that we have, and then thinking about how we might strategically respond to each of them, is that we want to improve transportation safety throughout Rollingwood and the connecting roadways to improve safety and throughput for the residents and businesses of Western Travis County, and really for our region as a whole. This was the statement that we kind of threw out there as a starting point in 2018, and haven't updated it, but would love to get feedback from our community at some point about that overarching goal. So what we did is we had this map on the last strategy document where I just took a Google map and added some numbers to it and identified some of the key areas that we've had discussion about in the past. And so there's 6 numbers that appear on Bee Caves Road and also at the intersection there under Mopac with Rollingwood Drive. And then we just kind of have a block for the residential area. And we didn't have a whole lot that we discussed in the residential area as far as this document last time, but I had started filling it in a little bit more this time. So just to do a really quick overview, under the intersection that we now have all seen and get improved during the Bee Caves Road improvement project that Westlake Hills led, we now have some additional sidewalks at the intersection of Bee Caves, Rollingwood Drive, and Old Welsh Charlton. Rollingwood Drive actually turns into Old Welsh Charlton, where the city of Austin's part starts at that intersection. And one of the goals that we had was to complete the ADA sidewalk and connections. That has yet to be done. But TxDOT has indicated that when we do the part of Bee Caves Road on our side, that's when a lot of those final connections and adjustments will get made. Also, in the past, we identified that adding additional push button activation that's accessible to kids, especially if you're heading one direction on Rollingwood Drive and wanting to cross there, you have to get across. Anyway, I'm not going to get into all the details, but I think there's still some modifications that we could look at there. One thing that has been brought to my attention since 2018 with the completion of the project there is that residents have requested that we see if TxDOT would consider adding some rubber lane dividers that would help distinguish the turn lane there, because as cars are heading westbound on Bee Caves Road and they get right before the McDonald's, they start getting over into the turn lane to go into Cava. And it blocks off that turn lane that we need for people to be able to turn on Rollingwood Drive. And I've had some near misses there myself and understand the issue. So I identified it as an issue that we might want to think about that has been identified as a safety issue for our area. The next area is number 2, and that is our long time discussed project from Rollingwood Drive to Montebello, a center turn lane, raising the bridge, addressing drainage, and bike ped safety. If you look at number 1, a big status update since 2018 is that this project is now in the unconstrained, fiscally unconstrained projects of the Campo 2045 plan, which was a huge effort that included Commissioner Daugherty helping us with that effort. And I really appreciate everyone, the mayor, former mayors, Wendy and I working with as many representatives as we could get to get that just in the unconstrained portion. And the next steps are not up in the air, but are in question. I think we have some discussion to have on that when we get to the Bee Caves Road item. I can give a few updates then. We also have had some discussion in the past about temporary additional signage and gates for the low water crossing. And those were things that were really on Commissioner Daugherty's list and never got done. So I think that would be a status check item with TxDOT to see if there's any desire to work on some of those things now before the roadway is improved. Something that I continue to try to advocate for and see if we could get some traction on would be configuring safer driveways to the commercial properties and shared driveway connections. This is also something that I've had directly requested by several of the property owners on Bee Caves Road, that we consider looking at providing for shared driveways and repositioning them to be in safer locations. And then Wendy had added additional design options for Bee Caves Road under the urban road classification, and we're continuing to do some research on that. So the third area is the Edgegrove Bridge improvements, and that's something that has been discussed by the council. It's been discussed by RCDC, and that's looking at how we raise or reconfigure the low water bridge there on Edgegrove to help connect the business district and the residential area and provide for pedestrian safety and also safety during flooding. And I don't have great status updates. So those are, and I'll say this, the document is kind of a work in progress. So I'm looking forward to help getting some of these things updated in a way that can give our residents and our commercial property owners some understanding of where we are in looking at all of these things. There have been updates since 2018. I haven't gotten them written out. So I'm looking forward to some of that from RCDC as well. Number 4 is the Bee Cave Road walls from Edgegrove to Mopac. In the past, we've identified areas where the walls are crumbling and also aesthetic issues from overgrown walls. We've looked at our agreement with TxDOT several different ways. TxDOT has occasionally done some improvements. There's other improvements they haven't done. And so those are things where there's room to go and continue to have those discussions. Number 5 is the Bee Cave Mopac intersection improvements. And under that, one of the biggest things that we've advocated for in our conversations with CTRMA is for improved signal timing equipment. as well as removing visual barriers in that area, reducing the impact from special events, maintaining, improving the east-west connection under MOPAC. So that continues to be ongoing in our conversations with CTRMA. There's so much that I could say right there, but I have it very abbreviated. Number 6 is at the Rollingwood Drive, Barton Springs frontage road area. You know, that is an area where I probably every month or two get a comment from a resident where they say, why is the intersection at Rollingwood Drive and the MOPAC frontage road so difficult? Why don't we have extra striping that shows people where the straight lane is and the turn lane? Why don't the stop signs say two-way stop? Like really, really basic things that could be done that would give people information at that intersection. And I did include the status update here that we did work with TxDOT on a design in 2018. They had the funding for it. And the city of Austin then indicated that they didn't approve of those changes. And then there became this big question of whose approval was needed. And I feel like that's kind of where we've left that one, because I felt like I was running around in circles and couldn't get anybody to tell me who actually gets to decide what improvements happen there. Why can't we just get some striping? Really, it is just one of those things about living in the city of Austin area, the Austin regional area, where you wonder, really, why can't we get more safety improvements at that intersection, just even basic striping? So the last area that I have on here is the residential area. And so in the past, we've kind of had just some general broad strokes of wanting to have an overall traffic calming plan. And as we've kind of, Councilmember Hundley and I have talked about it a little bit recently, some of the things that she'd really like to see because of specific questions that we've had from residents would be a procedure for residents to request traffic calming evaluation of a specific traffic safety issue on a particular street, a procedure for engineering evaluation of the traffic issue, and also a holistic evaluation of the traffic issues throughout the city. We've had the bike striping project, and that is has had multiple phases where we actually have those stripes now. I just want to always give kudos to Wendy for this, because she drove this project and I so appreciate it. It has taken work to get each of the phases funded and done, and I appreciate that. So also just whether we want to do any more phases of that. We have on here a speed deterrent enforcement plan. Some of that is something that can be driven by our police department, but also a discussion that I wanted to raise, because I've had multiple people ask me about it over the years, is whether we might collaborate with Westlake Hills to address what is referred to as the speed bump avoidance on Ridgewood. And a number of residents who live in Rollingwood, who live on Ridgewood, and end up having to either park cars or try to put other things in the street in front of their homes next to the speed humps, because people swerve around the speed humps, and there's a bus stop there where kids sometimes have to jump out of the street to avoid getting hit by cars that are swerving to avoid the speed humps, as well as just general pedestrian safety. And then the last thing that we added on here is special use street permits. Over the last couple of years, I've received more and more requests from residents to evaluate a number of different types of permitting that we would do in the city when it comes to how people park cars or block off streets. So I've had requests that if we have individual residence events that are exceeding a certain number of cars, that there would be some sort of permitting in place that would activate having additional police support. Also, when there's special events in Rollingwood, that we would have a certain type of permit, that we would have certain types of permitting when it comes to events that are in the park zone, which would be the fields and also the WAC pool. Also, we've had requests that residents would be able to request a street closure with their friends and their neighbors. either to be able to host an event or something similar. We've had requests that we look at construction parking permitting and looking at how cars are parked on streets, especially on streets where there's multiple houses under construction at the same time. And then also looking at making sure we have good wildfire routing. So those are some of the things that Wendy and I have just on the, like we've updated. What I wanted to do tonight is just bring it for the council to see. I also wanted it to be available to the strike force to see the types of things that we, like Wendy and I at least, have received comments on in the blue, or that we've worked on. Some of those things in collaboration with council action, some of them just on there as things that we have identified as issues, but that there's no council approval of this. This isn't the council's official list. It's just right now it's a working document to try to collect the issues that we've seen and heard comments about, and then also try to collect any other issues from other council members. And then our hope is that we would start working through some of these things, and then perhaps look at moving on to the next version of the document that would guide us in how we as transportation liaisons would spend our time during the rest of this term. So with that, I would love any other issues or comments that people might want to add or address.
I think I'll just add one thing to what you said, Amy, and that was that we had also talked about that as part of our comprehensive plan, having an overall strategy for what our traffic patterns look like and what our business district looks like will be important to incorporate in that comprehensive plan to give us some something to give TxDOT in direction of how we'd like to see that area developed around our city. So we're hopeful that we can work with David Smith. I believe he's taking over the Bee Cave corridor with Ryan Clinton. I think David Raymond maybe. Anyhow, we're going to try to come back around with them and see how we can get this into the comprehensive plan.
The only comments that I would suggest for immediate need and consideration are going to be Campo's discussion around contraflow traffic and kind of a general what appears to me, at least, it's not an official stance, I suppose, indication that both Austin and some of our western communities in the county, some of the regional mobility authorities would just as soon have Bee Caves Road served not as an urban road as would certainly be more befitting of our community, but more as a thoroughfare to allow for significant commuter traffic, travel from east to west specifically, with regards during rush hour traffic. So those are the kinds of things that we would consider. Obviously, we've fought hard for center turn lanes, and we can make all kinds of arguments as to why losing those could be detrimental to our quality of life and certainly our businesses and our commercial corridor. So anything that would help draw attention there. And then helping the strike force as well as the greater community understand that whereas we are a sovereign city, as a small city, we do not control, unfortunately, 100% of our fate. We do not get to dictate terms up and down Bee Caves Road. We can encourage TxDOT and regional stakeholders to take us and our concerns into consideration. How we encourage them is kind of up to us, but I would encourage us all to, at the very least, make sure that we position ourselves as a relevant part of the conversation as these regional stakeholders consider how they are getting their traffic from A to B through our community. So, I would suggest maybe that for comprehensive planning, broader strokes, maybe kind of generalities on concepts, encouraging shared drives where we can, without necessarily charging anybody with dictating where shared drives should go. In truth, I think that'll probably fall down to private commercial developments. What we should have really is more of an incentivization, if we feel that that's the right course for us. Some kind of carrot, if you will, for developers of these properties to be encouraged to share drives. I don't know how helpful that is, but that would be my 2 cents. I do like the process, the idea of identifying process, not just for speed bumps and traffic mitigation, but I think we should consider it also for areas. And we're talking to some folks right now about streetlights, and they're curious as to how, if maybe under their own or on their dime, they may be able to impact a different type or a different style of streetlight that maybe better suits their area. So developing those kind of processes, or kind of painting a bigger picture to invite the public to have that talk and the strike force to consider that. I think that certainly would be beneficial. Everything that you guys have indicated, and we've been, and you two have put hours upon hours upon hours, days of your lives into this at this point, cumulatively over years, and I appreciate everything. I definitely think you need to bring it to the forefront and let Strike Force and folks on Strike Force understand that a lot part of what we do is trying to figure out how to encourage regional stakeholders to take our needs and concerns seriously and implement them. So getting this conceptually into the comprehensive plan, I think, is important. I do believe we actually called for that transportation in the original, when we first started putting the comprehensive plan concept together. Amber, is that fair? I actually think that made it into an RFQ.
Yes, that's fair.
That's what I got on it. Ladies, thank you very much for putting this together. Council members, rather, for putting this together. And I would encourage you to put this in front of Strike Force if it hasn't been done already. It is certainly a worthwhile endeavor for our city to continue fighting the good fight against some of these that I don't think are spiteful necessarily for us, so much as just done despite our needs. So.
I really appreciate that, Mike. And I like the direction that you're heading of helping us get from, like, we've identified issues and moving past the issue part to the strategy or the bigger goal.
Yep.
And that's kind of why we started a document like this in the first place, was to try to first do the catalog, and then that helps us take the information we have and that the council has, and then start doing those next steps. And if we can do those in alignment with the comprehensive plan, that would be helpful. The other thing, to your point about relationships with other entities, as you've said, there's some of these things that are within our ability to manage them. And I've tried to indicate with each of the issues who the other parties are that we would have to work with. And that was really intentional, because at some point in time, when I'm able to get a meeting with our commissioner, like I have tomorrow with our new commissioner for Precinct 3, I have 45 minutes. And so I want to make sure that I focus on what's most important, and it's not going to be physically possible for me to discuss everything. So I think us knowing what our priorities are, and I know some of our priorities because they've been the standing agenda items for quite a while. that if there are other things that we want to start working on, like if we wanted to make a concerted effort on trying to get the safety issues at Rollingwood Drive and Mopac Frontage Road addressed, that is going to take a pretty big push. We're going to have to not just write one letter, but keep pushing until we get everybody who thinks they have a stake in it to finally acknowledge that it needs to be updated and agree to basic safety updates. The issue is that every time I've tried to have that discussion, it gets embroiled into the city of Austin then coming back and proposing taking away that access point at all, right? So it's just, I think to stay focused on the safety part, we're gonna need council action, and then we're gonna need to have a strategy of how we're gonna use the resources and relationships that our city has as a whole to get it done.
So you make a really good point. One of the things that the city of Rollingwood does not control is one of its primary ingress and egress points, right? And in the very recent past, we made bold approaches to change that dynamic. And unfortunately, that got lost in some noise and maybe was a result of poor communication on behalf of me and any number of other folks in the city, not being able to express the importance of why we were endeavoring to undertake some of the projects in the area that we were. In short, I think that problem, that the level of congestion and our safety issue through there, both for us in Rollingwood as well as Austinites, not only continues to get a little bit more perilous. Traffic increases, certainly as we start picking up event traffic for the park, usage in the park starts increasing. That problem doesn't ever go away. I am still hopeful that we would be able to have conversations with regional stakeholders on how we can preserve the integrity of that primary ingress egress point. That's a fancy way of saying one of the entry points to our city, as well as improving the safety there. But as you correctly point out, it's not just a matter of making noise. It's a matter of also making a good case as to why this is actually beneficial to all the parties involved and why this makes a difference, right? And then being able to have an open, honest conversation where the regional stakeholders lay their cards on the table and figure out a way to get everybody as much as what they need in a solution. That's something that unfortunately has been, I feel like we make some progress there and then it gets, clawed back for various reasons. I understand that that's been an ongoing scenario for years, but with any luck, we'll make some headway. But that's just one. Obviously, conversations around getting TxDOT to commit to a plan that improves safety and pedestrian hiking and biking up and down bee caves. As I think you were probably the first to correctly point out that we are at this point amount to what they refer to as a gap project, i.e. they're the only portion of Bee Caves Road that has not been improved to accommodate that level of pedestrian and cycle traffic is the portion that runs through the city of Rollingwood. And again, as you correctly point out, that is a situation that extends several mayors and the better part of a decade for us, right? If not longer.
Longer.
So, these are things as our community continues to grow and evolve in the community. When I say our community, I don't just mean obviously our city. I mean the greater community around us. Traffic patterns are going to continue to evolve, probably not in the way that we would most like to see. I think if I could implore you to do one thing when you speak to our new county commissioner, is to underscore the importance of Bee Caves Road to our portion of the community, the city of Rollingwood and our residents, as an urban road, right? Not a cut through, not a primary artery to get folks east to west, right? And I don't just mean it from the standpoint of of the children that need to cross the road to get ice cream or to go to school. I mean it from the sake of our businesses that rely on that traffic. I mean it for our residents who also are shop owners that rely on that traffic. So we can get that message across, and then couple that with the idea that, guys, we're willing to work to figure out whatever kind of solution makes sense for you guys, but we have to start with the understanding that this is an urban road for us, and it's a non-starter to turn us into a cut through, right, and a pass through with exceeding traffic and exceptional speeds. So anyway, if I could implore you to do one thing in your short period of time there, please try to tackle that. And then Edge Grove, Bee Caves Road, the low crossing, and then Rollingwood Drive at Mopac, without question, are some of our biggest concerns.
Great. Sarah or Buck, do you have any other items that are transportation related issues you'd like us to catalog?
Yeah, a couple of months ago, we had a engineering study on Riley and Stratford that just kind of fell off the radar, I think. And when we were talking about that, I had actually talked to Rob Spiller, who is the City of Austin Director of Transportation. And his comment on that, when I was talking to him about it, he goes, just call my office. He said, we're willing to, work with people on things, just call and talk to him. So I'm thinking that to the extent that that is a City of Austin jurisdiction under MOPAC, that hopefully that same invitation would apply.
That's a great suggestion.
I think y'all
I have talked with him
covered
about
it all.
the area
I think
under MOPAC, but I'll follow up with him on both of those issues again and see where we might be able to get to. Sorry, Buck, were you adding?
No, you just asked me if I had anything to add, and I think you and Wendy have pretty much covered it in that exhibit, all the hotspots. So I appreciate you guys staying on top of that.
Thanks. And to Sarah's point, I do think maybe adding a hotspot over on that Riley and Stratford area would be worth identifying, because it is a connector point out that we don't necessarily have full control over. And so getting things done there requires some strategy and planning with another entity. And that's part of what I think is helpful to see. I think we can, as we continue to work on this document and add some colors, and I know Wendy's gonna, when she really unleashes on it, it's gonna be really beautiful. It'll provide us with a lot more information that hopefully will help other people in our community also be able to help us with the relationships and resources they have to talk with other entities and elected officials in other areas to help us with some of these hotspots.
Right. Well, council, if there's any and nothing else there, I don't know that we need action on this. Wendy or Amy, do you feel differently?
I wasn't looking for action. Wendy, do you feel like there's any action we need?
No, I think the discussion we had was we just wanted to outline what priorities we had on the list so far and our strategies without strategies, which I thought was a funny joke. But to see, where the council wanted us to put our energy.
Yeah, and I feel like we can come back with another draft that might take us to the next step of identifying some additional priorities, and then hopefully we can use this to start conversation with the strike force as well.
Makes sense.
That's all I've got.
Okay. Well, if there's no additional action, ladies, again, council members, sorry I say that I don't mean to be disrespectful. I hope nobody's taking it that way. But I do appreciate the efforts, and we'll move on to item 22. This is any updates for the South Mopac expansion.
So we've kind of had an ongoing update the last couple of meetings, looking at the ramp project that CTRMA is evaluating again. And I did talk with David Armbruster, who's on the CTRMA board, and in view of the fact that they're in the process of hiring a new executive director, and there may be a little bit of a ramp up time for that person to get in that role, I thought it would be prudent to just wait. And also David felt like he would like to see who that new person is and how they're prioritizing that project. And that might help guide us on the type of input that we would give on that project. So that's what I would recommend, is that we wait and see who that new executive director is, and hopefully get a meeting with them relatively quickly into their stead in that space.
Good. Let's make sure if we do that, we foster a positive relationship.
I'm
sure we will.
I would hope so.
Appreciate the update. BK's Road. We have this as an agenda item frequently.
Right. So
I feel like I have just, I had a conversation with some members of the strike force a few weeks ago who were utterly shocked and amazed that there are conversations about expanding 5 lanes and that this hasn't already happened. And when I walk them through that, in fact, the conversation is not just that this hasn't happened yet, that there are regional mobility planning authorities that are actually trying to take us in the opposite direction. The jaw, I just had to help them lift it back up. Do we have any update on this, or is it?
So my only update is I know that we had an email with Epi, who's our TxDOT rep, a month or so ago, and I think it would be good to have a follow-up on that, to get a follow-up meeting on the books. But I hope when I speak with Commissioner Howard tomorrow to see whether she might attend that meeting with us, whether I believe it will be virtual, but whether she might be able to jump on that, so that we would be in alignment with Travis County and our commissioner from the start of this next year on this project. Because as I mentioned before, we're in the unconstrained part of the Campo 2045 plan. And so just from a regional planning perspective, we're going to have TxDOT finish their study of this roadway and do the environmental part of it and also the community input part of it, and then come up with a number that they believe the project would cost. And then we're going to have to go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think we would have to provide some kind of contribution for that as well, right?
Right. Yeah, we'll have a contribution, and then we're also going to, TxDOT's going to have to identify where where the majority of that money comes from and allocate it in their budget. And then there will have to be an amendment to the Campo 2045 plan to put that project into the fiscally constrained portion, in addition to it getting updated in several other planning documents that get updated quarterly and require public comment periods and applications for consideration. So I think that there's still quite a bit of work to be done to get us to the next steps that are going to require, like I said earlier, I think are going to require everyone in our community who has relationships and wants to get this project done to work together. I know that since I've been on the council, I have seen Mayor Barry Bone put his full shoulder into this and try to push it. I saw Tom Farrell come back for the second time and put his full shoulder in it and try to push it. I saw Roxanne do the same thing. I've seen you do the same thing, Mike. And it is not for lack of having incredibly experienced business professionals who are willing to give their time as our mayor that this project has not gotten done. It is just the number of different items that have to get aligned is very high. And the barriers that we've faced have been also very high. And so I would invite everyone in our community who feels like they have something to do to add, a resource to add, a relationship to add, to come together to help us do this. And I think that's what it's going to take.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I don't know how dangerously close some of our former mayors have gotten, but considering how close we have been in just these last couple of years, I am convinced that with a little bit of extra oomph, we could have potentially gotten it across the line.
I feel like every mayor so far has felt that way.
No, I tell you, one of us will hit that magic sauce, and this will all get done, and everybody's efforts. But probably what'll end up happening in reality is that all these contributions have finally, over the course of years, have finally stacked high enough to where it just overflows. And yeah, I like to think if we're all getting that close, we must be dangerously close as a community to achieving this. And so it's well deserved. In truth, a lot of what we've discussed doesn't just make sense for the city of Rollingwood. It makes sense for all the regional stakeholders as well. And I think that's the key to our success in this, is that we're not having these conversations strictly for the benefit of what's inside of our city limits. Right. I think we all understand at this point that we don't exist in a little bubble, and that we're part of a regional community, and being able to add benefit to that regional community is what's going to get these regional projects done for us. So again, I appreciate the efforts. I know the level of stick-to-itness that you have had over the course of these years, and the tenacity that Wendy is bringing to it recently is much appreciated. The council does, or if the city rather doesn't realize it, I'm sure they've started to gather it at this point. Get there. As I say, I was saying it earlier, we've got more people involved in our city, more citizens involved in our city now than we have in quite some time. So
We really do. I think that was such a great point. And I think that I really am hopeful that this opportunity to educate more of our residents will yield that final push that gets us over the line on this.
Well, let's make sure we don't get distracted by another, I don't know, pandemic or something. And we'll get there. But in the meantime, I appreciate everything. I'm trying to be respectful of everyone's time. Is there anything else critical that you need from us ahead of going in with Commissioner Howard?
I don't think so. And she and I don't have a set agenda. We just have
Yeah.
a call
Well,
scheduled. But I feel like the opportunity is really beneficial, and to know kind of what would the mayor and my fellow council members want me to focus on when I'm talking with her. And I also look forward to hearing what she is focusing on and wants to share about her first 100 days as our county commissioner.
Please give her my best, and congratulations on her win. I haven't had an opportunity to touch base with her since taking office. So we'll look forward to changing that. In the meantime, I would like to call attention to the reports for items 24 through 34 are available for review for anybody that needs them. And with that, I believe we've covered it. Did a little skipping around. Ashley, did I miss anything? Keep me honest.
I think we covered everything.
Great, appreciate it. Council, if I could impose on you one last motion for the evening for adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
Do we have a second? You guys want to hang out?
Second.
There we go. Thank you, Sarah. Tell you what, I think a voice vote will be just fine for this. All in favor?
Aye.
Fantastic. Thank you all very much. City staff, administration, thanks for your patience as
Thanks,
always.
everybody. Great meeting.
Have a great night.
Thank y'all.
Thank you,
everybody.
guys.